Yes.
Director Weiner?
Here.
Director Cepeda?
Here.
Great.
Right, next item, please.
1B, Pledge of Allegiance or observation of moment of silence.
Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, please.
Item 2, approval of agenda.
Mr. President?
Okay, what's the will of the board?
Mr. President, this is
Yeah.
Director Weiner.
Go ahead, Director Weiner.
I would like to move we modify the agenda by adding the following language to the adjournment.
Okay.
We adjourn this meeting in solidarity with the protests in Minnesota and around the Bay Area. Protests which are disrupting the injustice of business as usual. The business as usual, which includes the murder of our fellow citizens by racist police.
Oh.
Director Weiner, is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Make a motion to second that.
Looks like Director Cepeda seconded, so can we get the roll call, please?
Can we say that, please? Can we ask Mick if that's okay to say?
Yeah, that's an expression of opinion. The board can express its opinion.
Okay, thanks.
Roll call. President Alvarado.
Thank you.
Vice President Suddeth.
Absolutely.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Item 3, public comments, items not on the agenda.
Do we have any public speakers on this item?
We don't, but we do have a letter that was submitted by a Mr. Hill. It has been received and distributed to the board of directors. And from what I understand, that's what I need to say.
That is correct. Any discussion would need to be done in closed session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't see any reason for any discussion, especially since all directors already got a copy. Next item, please.
Item 4, consent calendar. 4A, approve the minutes for the special board meetings held May 14th, 2020, May 22nd, 2020, and the regular board meeting held May 20th, 2020. 4B, approve the proclamations for the months of July, August, and September 2020.
Okay, what is the will of the body? Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Items have been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Director Weiner. Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. I want to apologize in advance for the train crossing, but I'm outside because it's so dang hot in the house. So, so whoever can mute me when you hear the train coming, please mute me. Next item, please.
Item 5, action calendar. 5A, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to amend the agreement with Cascade Integration and Development, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $53,854 for a total not to exceed $82,154 for SCADA systems upgrades.
All right. Who's giving us a presentation on this?
Good evening, President Alvarado and Board of Directors. Aaron Weiner, excuse me, Water Quality and Resource Recovery Manager. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So really what we're doing tonight is coming to you with a resolution asking for money, which is not unusual. And if you look at the staff report, we are looking for about $53,000 and approval for us to enter into a contract with Cascade Integration. And Cascade does our SCADA work, and they have for some time. The treatment plant SCADA system, which is the system that allows us to remotely operate and monitor the plant, was upgraded about 2 years ago in 2018. The hardware and software, excuse me, that operate that system the hardware was installed in 2010, so it's 10 years old. The software components that primarily operate the system are originally from 2003, 2004, and really, as it states in the report, they're beyond their useful life and no longer supported by the manufacturers. So the long and short is that we have this shiny new operating system and old hardware and software components that run it and that we rely on. So we're looking to do an upgrade to the hardware and software components as it mentions in the report.
Is that Aaron?
That's it.
Okay. We'll start with Director Stanley. Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay,
No
Director
comment.
Weiner. Director Weiner.
Out of curiosity, what is the operating system that SCADA runs on?
So the new system that was installed 2 years ago is called Ignition. And before that, I think we had a Rockwell product. It was, I believe, RSView, and there are several others. But yes, the one that we use is Ignition.
So it's a proprietary operating system.
Yes.
Thank you. That's my
Okay, thank you, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda.
I don't have any questions necessarily at this time.
Okay, thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter.
One question, and what is the expected life of this new upgrade? We just upgraded this like 2 years ago. You think this will be another 2 years, or what with this new operating system?
So the new operating system, Director Sutter, we expect to probably last 15 years.
Right.
The one that we installed 2 years ago. But it's important to note that the other components that run, there are kind of subcomponents to that new operating system. They're 10 or more years old, and that kind of equipment, typically you need to replace every 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. So it looks like, Aaron, that this is just old and needs to be replaced.
Yes, in a nutshell, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve the action calendar?
So moved.
I make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the GM to amend the agreement with Cascade Integrations as proposed.
Good.
Second, please.
Second.
All right, the item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
My apologies. President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Cepeda. Cepeda?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry, I gotta find the mute button.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you.
Item 6, information report. 6A, receive a report on the definition of a carbon negative organization.
All right, who will get the pleasure of hearing about this?
Hi, this is Michael Savannah from the Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager.
Good evening, Michael.
Good evening. I hope everybody is well. We will be presenting this evening on the carbon negative definition. John is here He has been at the forefront of this initiative and will present to you this evening.
Thank you, Michael. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure, this is a little odd because normally we would see a PowerPoint, and I don't know where that is at this juncture. But I'm going to follow along with my slides, and I assume that you are with yours. Basically, the title of the report really is the question.
John, you can share your screen if you like. Oh, there we go. Someone's sharing it.
Somebody else is sharing it. That's wonderful. Because I'm doing mine by the old-fashioned way of paper. Okay, so what is a carbon negative organization? That was the task I was asked to investigate, and I thought that it would be a relatively straightforward assignment and relatively easy to do because it's 3 words and they're all easily understood when considered independently. The first question is, after I started, was why do we need to define the term? Why is it important to the organization to actually know what we're talking about when we say that? Basically, the board has set a strategic goal of becoming a carbon negative organization, and since we have the goal, we should all have a common understanding of what we mean when we say that. And we have to define the end result of this goal to know when we've achieved success. So we're going to have to know when we reach this status, and a definition is required for that. And understanding the definition allows us to plan for actions in order to deliver the goal that the board has asked us to meet. So moving on, why is carbon itself important? Well, carbon is shorthand for carbon-based greenhouse gas emissions. And that's I guess the main driver in global warming, and we presented to the Global Warming Committee on this matter first. Your board is invested enough in this particular issue to have a committee that talks about it. So moving forward on that, greenhouse gas emissions such as carbon dioxide, monoxide, and methane are major contributors to global warming. Measuring carbon emissions is a way for us to measure the environmental impacts of the organization as a whole, and then the district has a significant carbon emissions inventory and must plan to reduce that to meet the board goals. So moving on to the next slide, what we did to define the term. We did some web research on environmental best practices, and it was interesting when we did this to find that there really wasn't an accepted common definition of what a carbon negative or a carbon neutral organization is. It was a little bit circular, we found actually. A carbon neutral organization is an organization that is neutral in its carbon emissions. As you can see, it's a little circular. The terms are used to define themselves, which doesn't give a lot of impact to the definition. So I went further and I had discussions with 2 of the district's consultants, Sage Energy and Kenwood Energy, and started to develop my thinking about this. I inquired of several leading environmental organizations about how they viewed this term and concept. The board has copies of some of the email correspondence that I had with the Climate Center, 350.org, and with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, basically the jurisdictional organization responsible for the state's climate action plan and carbon reduction programs. And as it turns out, basically, nobody had a really good definition of the term. So we sort of created one out of whole cloth. Next slide, please. That's the definition. I know all of you have read it. I imagine when my senior management saw this definition, they quailed a little bit. It's very dense and chewy, but there are a couple of major points in there that I think you can call out when we're talking about the important elements. I'm not going to read the whole definition, but I will ask that we go on to the next slide to talk about the important points. Basically, a carbon neutral or negative organization is one that's completed a greenhouse gas emissions baseline inventory. First of all, you've got to create an inventory to know what your emissions are before you can get or demonstrate that you have gotten to a neutral or negative position. Another important point is that progress is routinely measured and reported as you move towards your goal. that seems to be commonly accepted, that if you're not measuring your activities towards reductions and you're not able to account for them, then declaring victory is going to be a little bit empty at the end of the day. It's an organization that has reduced emissions to their lowest practical levels. That was a suggestion by some of the consultants, because practicality in these issues is really important. You can spend increasing amounts of money to reduce carbon emissions as you move closer and closer to a net zero or a negative status. And some of the reductions are not cost effective, and some of the reductions may not be operationally practical. So practicality is an important thing for us to consider. Some of the ways that that the district might look at reducing emissions over time is the comprehensive energy project that we're discussing with ENGIE as our potential ESCO, renewable energy sources for the energy we use in operations, greening our fleet, commute reductions from the employee commute aspect, and plant process changes are all potential elements of our approach to reduced emissions. And then another important element of the definition is the use of offsets and credits. At a certain point, there is either an inability to further reduce your emissions because you cannot do business in a way that has zero emissions, or you cannot afford to make the change necessary to reduce your emissions. So you have to look for ways to gain carbon credits or offsets that will counterbalance the emissions that you can't eliminate through your proactive measures. Next slide, please. Okay, so then, working in partnership to remove more carbon than necessary to cancel our, quote, environmental debt due to GHG emissions creates a carbon negative status. The importance about this is once you've reduced or accounted for everything that you're responsible for in terms of your operational emissions, you'll have to go beyond that to get to a carbon negative status, which is what the board's goal actually talks about doing. Being a net positive influence on the environment as a result of our existing as a business. Some important points are it's really hard to achieve this. There's no known affordable path for us to be able to achieve it, at least at this point in time. And as I mentioned, reductions become increasingly expensive as you get closer because the low-hanging fruit can often be cost effective. You can save money doing some of our initiatives. You'll get to the point where some of them will be break even, and those are easy to do as well. It's when you have to pay money over and above the savings to be able to achieve emissions that they become harder to operationally justify. And of course, you can't really achieve neutral or negative status given existing technology without some sort of offsets to our process. Next slide, please. There are reasons for hope. And the first one may not seem like much of a reason for hope, but the fact that we don't know about new solutions doesn't mean they're not coming. This is an area that other people are working on as well. There are all sorts of initiatives that I'll refer to obliquely or directly at the end of the presentation, where there will be the potential for additional emission reductions and or sequestration or credits from actions that we could take that will be coming forward, and we just don't know about them yet. The sequestration advances have to do with taking carbon out of the air and out of processes and putting it back into the earth or the water, which are two naturally occurring carbon sinks or carbon banks, if you will, where if we're able to adopt processes that will do that, we will get a lot of benefit from an environmental perspective. We have a chance to do all green energy and cogeneration at the plant, utilizing more of our methane, which will both reduce our emissions content and give us credit for green energy. So those steps are something that the board will be asked to consider, assuming that they're relatively cost effective in terms of a project sometime in the relatively near future. Solids to soils may open tree planting. There's an opportunity for us to work with other jurisdictions if we are able to utilize our soils, especially if we're able to take our drying process to a Class A soils result, where we could get credit for some of the agricultural uses that would be created from the use of our fertilizers and soil amendments in a way that we currently don't now that will help us reach our goal. Partnerships with other groups are going to be possible. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District saw our plan and the work that we're doing and is very interested in working with us on some cutting edge initiatives that they've been considering, looking for jurisdictions to partner with. So the fact that we're doing the work that we're doing and working towards this rather difficult to achieve status is going to open up some opportunities for partnership with us in areas that don't currently exist. And last but not least, we don't have to do this year or even next year or even this decade. We have 11 years till the deadline. So you can at least take heart in the fact that we'll have some opportunity to be able to make additional efforts and strides. Next slide, please. This is a biggie. The fiscal impact of undertaking the achievement of this goal is not known. We have no idea how much it will cost to eventually be able to achieve this status, and the board won't have any idea if it's able or willing to make those investments until staff comes forward with a more defined approach to trying to tackle these issues. It's important, again, for me to mention that some of the measures are going to be easy to achieve and easy to adopt because they're going to be cost effective. We're going to do energy efficiency at the district that's going to drive our emissions down because we're going to use less energy. I mean, that's a win-win because it'll be cost effective and we'll be able to pay for the improvements by virtue of the savings that we will achieve financially and get the benefit of the greenhouse gas emissions. Other measures will generate GHG emissions and be cost neutral. I mentioned those as well, and those are often easy to adopt. As you get further into the reductions, you're going to find some that won't pay for themselves. That'll be a policy decision your board will have to tackle and discuss amongst yourselves. Carbon neutrality or negative status will be very expensive at the end of the day without some new breakthroughs, without solutions that we don't currently know about. And then I'd like to point out that the state of California has an overall goal of being carbon neutral by 2045. This district is 14 years ahead of their schedule and wants to go a little farther than the state as a whole. And the state, if I'm not mistaken, is the leading state in the union for this issue. So you're out in front of the people that are out in front of everybody. So anyway, it's certainly an audacious goal. Next slide, please. Next steps. We present the definition to the board and get your sense for whether you can accept and embrace the definition. We'll be bringing forward the greenhouse gas emissions baseline report and ask you to adopt the baseline calculations, at least from a staff working perspective. We'll be at the Global Warming Committee with the baseline next Tuesday, and we hope to be to the board the following Wednesday on the 17th with that. We should amend the climate action plan that your board approved in December to reflect our baseline. It was one of the elements that the state pointed out we didn't yet have in our CAP. You don't have a baseline and you don't have a plan yet. You have money and you have a goal. Well, we're going to have a baseline and we should include that in the cap. We're going to be investigating, as I mentioned, an energy project at the plant and district offices and at some of the lift stations, which will be in all likelihood very broad, very big, and which should be able to pay for itself over time through the savings that we expect to garner. It will be a monumental undertaking for the district. It'll be potentially like another recycled water project, the likes of which we had in recent past. And we should then, from those elements and initiatives, create a plan to move forward with additional measures to reduce our emissions. And then we'll measure the results annually and report to the board and the public on the effectiveness of the initiatives that the board directs us to undertake and we adopt. And that's the end of the presentation. I'm available for questions. At this point, Michael's also available for questions because he and I have worked on this so much, he knows as much or more about it as I do at this point. And thanks very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're going to start with Director Stanley. Any questions, comments?
Comment. John, thank you so much for the work that you did on this. And Michael, I love this when you brought it to the global warming, and I still love it now. And I appreciate the expertise and the even something as simple as knowing who to call and where to start that you bring to us from RGS. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner? Director Weiner? I think Director Weiner's been muted.
Harry, you're still on mute, Harry. There you are. You were off mute for 1 second. Millis, there you are.
I'm pushing the space bar. What's going on? Okay, I love technology. I really do.
Thank you, Director Weiner.
I'm not done.
I know. Thank you for responding.
Oh.
You were muted for a while.
I was trying. I have a question for either John or Michael. Since you've come up with your definition, have you heard back from any of the organizations that you contacted for theirs?
The feedback I got from a couple of the consultants was that they thought the definition was broad and encompassing and stated the principles well. And what I heard back from BAAQMD was the feedback that I should add the practical comment. Otherwise, they were in agreement with the definition. No one has provided any input to say that they would make any changes or that they didn't agree.
It seems it seems from your report that this definition is groundbreaking. So I want to congratulate both you and Mike for doing that. And it seemed from your discussion that it was a trivial matter to come up with the definition, but really it puts our district in the forefront of implementing our greenhouse gas goals and the state. So kudos to you both. Really great to see this happen, and I'm really impressed and hoping that we will be able to, as your hopeful slide suggests, when the time comes, find the solutions for the final push. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda.
I agree with Director Weiner. I think this was a really good presentation. I was excited when I saw it in the packet. I was looking forward to something like this for a while. I'm excited that you both worked on it and have it together. With that, John, you mentioned that we were working with a few other companies to bring in some projects that can help us get to our goal there. I'm not sure which companies those were, but I did attend, and these I'm going to mention two of them in a minute. When I attended the CASA winter conference, they had two speakers. Well, they had a lot of speakers, but two of them that I liked the most. One of them was Bloom Energy, and they were looking, I don't know if that's one of your companies already that you're working with, but they were looking for pilot wastewater districts to pilot their new idea they have. And pretty much they connect to our, and I don't know the whole technical stuff, but they connect to our system. They take our dirty water and our dirty whatever, and they, on the other side is clean energy. I don't know everything that goes in the middle. I'm not a scientist, but that's what they had given me. And I have the person's name, and I don't know if we can maybe reach out to them to see if we can be one of those pilot agencies, because they might help us get to our goal, so we don't have to wait till 2031 to achieve it. The other one was Silicon Valley Clean Water. They were doing anaerobic secondary treatment. They were looking to create or convert some of the methane into protein to maybe feed animals or also create biodegradable plastics. And it all came from the wastewater districts. So if we're able to do that, I mean, that could also be a source of revenue. Maybe, I don't know how much plastic we can create, but biodegradable plastic is sort of the new wave. And if there's any feed for animals, that could help us out as well. So those were two that I wanted to recommend. But other than that, really good presentation. I look forward to hearing the next steps that we're going to take and getting us to reach our goals. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
Yes. Good presentation. Good presentation.
Okay. Is that it, Vice President Sutter?
I'm going to leave it at that. Good
Okay.
job. I don't want to belabor it. Everybody else said everything. Good
Yeah,
job.
okay. Thank you so much, Vice President Sutter. It was a very, very impressive presentation and very good work by the Global Warming Committee. I want to commend the members of that committee for their work, and I would look forward to seeing the next set of results. So next item, please.
Item 6B, receive an update on West County Wastewater's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, who's giving us this update?
That will be Andrew.
I'm working on it here. Yeah. Okay, good evening, President Alvarado and members of the board.
Good evening.
I think our COVID-19 update is becoming fairly routine. That's the unfortunate part of it, but not a lot of change, again, in the last 2 weeks. The report is fairly similar. The county has come out with, since the last meeting, an updated order, which came out yesterday and is effective today. It continues to loosen a number of restrictions on activities and allows for a number of other businesses to open, operate, such as in-store retail. And they all need to develop their social protocols, distancing protocols, plans, etc. But it doesn't have really much effect directly on us. We're going to continue the operations as we have. We've had a workplace exposure control plan in place, and we're going to modify that again. We're going to continue. The order does still require or request that anyone outside of the residence wear a face covering wherever you go within the county, as well as many of the other restrictions. So we're going to continue to maximize the number of people working from home. We were going to require face coverings through at least July 31st. The social distancing protocols, working on staggering work shifts, etc. And we're communicating this to our staff to try to make it clear that while there's on the surface a relaxing of many of these orders and allowing more businesses to operate, those businesses are not operating as they were before the pandemic began. And we've been operating because we've needed to. And the biggest thing we can do is to continue to have people working from home, especially, well, not especially, but in conjunction with this, John's presentation, we're just talking about wanting to be a carbon neutral, carbon negative organization. One of the current CDC recommendations is that employers provide incentives to workers to commute in individual vehicles, which is, of course, exactly the opposite of what we've been trying to do for years in the Bay Area and many parts of the country to increase bicycling and mass transit, etc. But this is in light of the pandemic, of course, and so there are certain pieces of advice like that that, frankly, we're not really going to follow, but rather take a different tact and say we're not going to encourage or incentivize people to drive individual vehicles, which increases our greenhouse gas footprint, but rather we're going to continue to make it available and support and try to improve our telecommuting options so that we can, keep the greenhouse gas emissions down, keep the commuting down, and also keep the administrative offices with less people, which allows for less person-to-person contact. And that's pretty much all I have for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I'm sorry, let's start with Director Stanley. Any questions or comments?
No, I'll just make a comment. I've been intrigued about the possibility of people working at home. It sort of solves a office space issue. And for me personally, I don't go anywhere. I don't see anybody. I don't want to be near people, and certainly don't want employees to feel like they're at risk for coming to work. So it might be a while before anybody feels comfortable to be close to people. So that's just my comment. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner.
The only thing I could say is I hope when we have established a regular work from home, after the COVID restrictions are lifted, we find a cure, I hope. Let's have a lot of parties so that we could all get together in person, if just for fun. And that's my only comment.
Thank you.
I think that many people will agree with that, but we have also informed people we're not going to have any large person events at least through the end of this year. So we'll have to postpone your parties probably until January or so.
I believe he just gave you a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Director Cepeda.
I have a few questions, but first for Director Weiner, will you be having some of your vodka, your homemade vodka at these parties?
I'm not sure that would be acceptable to the management, but I will put forward the concept.
Perfect. So I had a few questions and made some suggestions. So thank you, Andrew, for that update. Wanted to see if we were letting our employees know, our staff and members, letting them know the free COVID testing going on at different areas in Contra Costa County. One of them is right next to the new San Pablo City Hall. It's very easy for our members to go there and get tested. I got tested last Friday. The test is not that difficult. It no longer goes up to your brain. It just barely touches your nostrils for 15 seconds each nostril, and it's done. Before it went in to see if you had a brain, and then it scattered them around. But it's no longer the case. They have a new test. So we want to promote that in case our employees feel like they want to take that test. And it also helps to make sure that the employees, if they're not infectious, and they are positive, that they can get treatment without getting anybody else sick. So that might be something that we might want to let them know. Then the question that I had is, do we have an update on the EV charging stations? And the reason I'm asking that in this agenda item is because if we are going to be asking people to drive, or if they are driving more for some reason, a way to be able to cut that carbon is if they're driving an electric vehicle. So if we have those charging stations, it could help us on that goal, especially because some more people might need to be driving in if they need to go into the office. You don't have to answer it. You might not have an answer now, but that's just sort of a question. Hopefully we're working on that and getting that going soon. Then the other is HR 7073. If we're able to sign up for that and be able to support it, we received an email from CSDA telling us to see if we can support HR 7073. The special districts provide essential, saying that the special districts provide essential services, and pretty much so that we could, it would allow special districts access to the coronavirus relief fund, and also be able to define the term special district in federal law. So if we can look into that and see if that's something that our agency wants to partake. It was written to be able to help agencies out during COVID, so we can qualify for some of those federal monies. And speaking of money, I'm tying that into our budget. A lot of agencies all around, as you may know, are cutting back, and they're looking at their budgets again because of COVID. And I would like to know, and again, you don't need to give me an answer now unless you have it, but are we looking at our budget? Are we going to be affected going forward because of any tax issues, people not being able to pay the property taxes or property taxes being changed or whatever not, how are we getting affected if we are getting affected, and how's that going to be for the future? So those are all my statements and questions. Andrew, if you have answers for some of them, I'll take them, and if not, over email some other time or our next meeting as well. Thank you.
Lisa, did you want to respond to the budget question at all?
Sure, I can give a quick answer. I don't want to get too far off topic. We are looking at our budget, but we are not looking at any reductions as a result of COVID, COVID impacts. We are in close communication with the county, so we've received our major payment in April, and we don't anticipate any issues at this time, but Justin is in contact with the county on a regular basis, and we are again looking at our budget, and that will be coming before the board next board meeting for any changes, but we're not looking any reductions as a result of COVID impacts at this point.
And Lisa, just to clarify, thank you for that. The reductions, there's no reductions in payments to the district, and there's going to be no reduction in staff or no reductions either way. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, Andrew, do you have an answer to any of his other questions?
I can provide a couple more. We have not been promoting the COVID testing, but we will definitely take a look at that and include that in some of our exchanges. We're going to be having a meeting with all hands next week, and we can certainly provide that information to everybody, and we'll look into the details on that. The EV charging stations, we are looking at some EV charging stations as a component of the ESCO project, if that one goes forward. So that's in discussions, and we're seeing how we might be able to make that work out. And then the HR 7073, we're going to have to look into that. I don't have an answer for you on that.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. That's it for me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director Spada. Vice President Sutter?
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
Yes, sir. Just a couple. Working from home and returning to office. I'm just going to say that a lot of people like working from home. However, I would like for us to make sure that we're actually checking in with people to see how they're doing working from home. And I want us to check in with people to see how they're doing, not with the work, but how they're actually doing. Because I think that when we talk to people about how they're actually doing, we'll find out something that, and I'm saying this from personal experience, with talking to the people who I have reporting responsibility with in my own job. And what you find is that people like working from home, it can be isolatory. And there's a lot of other mental things that go with working from home this long away from people. So I would like to make sure that we're actually checking in with people from a mental health standpoint and from that isolation standpoint. Because it's one thing to be able to work from home, but it's other things that get in the way with, I'm working from home, I'm having to be a homeschooler now with children, I have parents at home I have responsibility for, and I can't go outside. They're locking me in, and now we got a curfew that's 5 or 6 o'clock. So there's a lot of other things that are wearing down on people, and it can be incredibly mentally and socially isolating and mentally draining. So I hope that we are taking this time to not only see that it's beneficial for the district, and we from our aspect saying that, oh, it's beneficial for us, but that we are checking in to make sure that our employees are truly not just saying, oh, it's okay, that they're okay. And that we're also proactively and being intentional about saying, we have EAP benefits for you if you need to talk to someone. Or if you need to come into the office because you need that one day a week that you need to get away from your house, it's available to you. Everybody can't come in every day of the week, but maybe you need that one day where you need to get out of the house and you need to come because it's 100 degrees in your house and you don't have air conditioning and the office is air conditioned. Because I found that I had employees who needed to do that. And they needed that one day in the office. Or some people just need to be in the office. Because what I also found that is that I had employees who needed to keep from doing some unhealthy habits. And they need the office to keep them from doing things because they were isolatory in their homes. And the office is what they need. The office helps define who they are. So I hope that we are taking a moment to not just do what we think is best for people, but we're talking to them and we're spending the time to be intentional about what is best for each of these employees and not just what we think or what we want to project onto them about what is good for them. We're talking to them about the EAP benefits, and that we're having these conversations about return to the office. The other thing, the last thing that I want to say is that if we're offering commuter benefits to these workers and they're no longer commuting to the office these months, and we're not intending to bring them back over this period of time, and I'm having this conversation even on the legislative level. These last 3 weeks we've been having legislative visits, and so I'm trying to see what we can do. I would like to know, and this is to our other board members, I want you to think about this as well, how we can think about maybe helping people with their elevated or exacerbated utility bills, because now that they're working at home more people are seeing higher PG&E bills, and so it's taking the place of, yes, you're saving on gas, you're saving on parking or whatever, but your utility bills are higher because you're at home more. So I want to see what we can do to maybe balance that commuter benefits with the utility bills. And like I said, I'm also talking on the legislative level about that. And I don't know if Mick, you can weigh in on that, or if you need to, or we need to have a separate conversation about it. Thank you very much. That was it, President Alvarado.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. I have a couple of questions. I don't know. I'll just throw them out there. Maybe Andrew or Lisa can answer this. I know that the governor's stay-at-home order expired May 31st. And basically, he's leaving it up to the counties now to make their own decisions as to when they're reopening in different stages. Is that true, or has the governor extended his stay-at-home order?
The order that's really the controlling order for us is the Contra Costa County order of June 2nd, which went into effect today. And that still has a stay-at-home, shelter-in-place component that unless you are needing to go to work or, performing, one of the businesses that is open or, one of the approved activities in there, there's still a shelter-in-place order which continues.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's my only question. Next item, please.
Item 7, matters from staff, general manager, and attorney. 7A, staff, general manager, attorney comments, communications, reports on issues or matters pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
So I think we are going to have one update by Michael, and then I will check in with everyone else, see if they have any updates, and I have one comment after Michael is done.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Savannah again, Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. So there's a couple of things that I want to update the board and the public on. We have the Lakeside and Hilltop Green emergencies that the work is all complete and we're wrapping up all of the paperwork, putting together the closeout reports. And I think you'll see both of those at the first meeting in July. We also had a surprise break of another force main on the La Honda lift station last week. The break was near San Pablo Dam Road. Well, it was actually on San Pablo Dam Road. And at that station, we've got an old 6-inch cast iron line. There was a sinkhole in the street that was reported to our CSO crew. The service call crew came out and identified the location, called in the fact that we would need to get a repair crew out there. We mobilized relatively quickly, and within less than 24 hours, we were able to excavate, identify, and repair the break. We came back and paved it the next day. We worked really closely with the local agencies as well as just about every division in the organization to get this resolved extremely quickly. There were no service disruptions to the community in the area, and I want to report that all is well and we're back to normal operations. So I am available for any questions that anyone may have.
Lisa, do we have any other comments from staff?
I am checking. Justin or
No, I do not
Andrew?
have anything.
Andrew,
Yes,
anything else?
I do have one. Next Tuesday, June 9th at noon, it's sponsored by the Bay Area Regional Collaborative. It will be a Resilient by Design 2-year anniversary webinar series. This one is applying local learning to a regional context, advancing resiliency in North Richmond. And this is, I will be on as one of the panel members. It'll be a discussion. Josh Bratt from the San Francisco Estuary Partnership will be the moderator, and we'll be talking about the recent grant that's been awarded and what the plans are. Urban Tilth, the Watershed Project, Contra Costa County will all be part of the panel as well. And we'll be back to the board next meeting with the asking you to pass the resolution accepting that grant award. And then, of course, we're moving forward with the work plan and all the details we need to do so we can actually get the disbursement of funding. But that'll be happening next Tuesday at noon.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Lisa?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I sent out a couple of emails and I just wanted to make sure everybody is aware we are now on Nextdoor and we are posting. We also, if you haven't had a chance to check out our new link on the website, which is how we're responding to the COVID pandemic, please take a look at that. We did pause some social media posts yesterday, I believe. We're not going to be posting for a little bit, just taking some quiet time. I do want to acknowledge, this has been a very tough few weeks. We are making sure that checking in with staff, we're making sure that our staff that are out in the field are safe. We had some disruption, some looting and things like that the other night at the Hilltop area. So we're just limiting staff, the few staff that are coming into Hilltop, we're limiting them for a couple of days, just kind of keeping it minimal, making sure that everybody is out before the curfew, and we're monitoring that situation. And just want everyone to know, that we do, we are continuing to function, we're continuing to make sure we take care of the public health, but it has been a very tough couple of weeks on staff, and we want to make sure we're taking care of their mental health, not just their physical needs. So we are doing that. We have an all-hands staff meeting, Zoom call next week, which I think I hope will be very well attended like it was last time. So just wanted to acknowledge that and thank everyone, thank staff who continue to do what they need to do every day in spite of so many things that have been thrown at us in the last several months. 3 force main breaks in the midst of a pandemic and in the midst of, the other things that are going on and just the pain that's going on in the community. So that was all I really wanted to comment on, but thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm gonna go through the board to ask any questions on the reports you just got from staff. Director Stanley.
Mr. Savannah, did the pipe get repaired? I wasn't clear on what you said. Is the pipe with the hole fixed, or is it just in process?
No, so we dug it up the same day that it broke, or the same day that we were notified that it broke, and we repaired it. We started working. I think we started digging around noon, and we were done with the repair around 11 o'clock in the evening. So it is repaired. It's back on normal operations. We've taken out all of the frac tanks, and we actually didn't bring in any frac tanks, but we took out all of the tanker trucks are not there anymore. All of the equipment is out, and the road is paved back. So it's back to normal operations.
Okay, great. And then a question for our general manager: Are we concerned about looting on any of our properties or lift stations or anything like that? Do we need?
We're monitoring it at the moment. We don't have any reason to think that those are vulnerable. Hilltop, we do have some, obviously the trucks and things like that. They're behind a gate. We do have alarms. The plant, someone is there 24 hours. So that is monitored. Our lift stations, we haven't really talked about those being too vulnerable, but we're continuing to monitor it and watch what's going on, and we'll respond accordingly. Right now, my main concern has really been staff and making sure that staff are. While we need people to be socially distant, we also don't want people to be working completely alone, just so we have some safety in numbers and things like that.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner.
No, it sounds like things are well in hand, and really appreciate that.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda.
Nope, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter.
I'm fine. I just appreciate the last statement, making sure the people are valued over the property. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank the staff for all they've done, especially Lisa and her leadership team. They have kept us on course and have given us good information. Keep up the good work. And let's forward to the next item, please.
Item 8, matters from members of the board. 8A, meeting reports, reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, and meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
All right, I'm going to ask the ad hoc committee chair to give me an update on the ad hoc committee doings and where we're at.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you, Mr. President. So the ad hoc committee met. The last meeting was actually today, right before this meeting. We have developed a list of vendors that we're going to be looking at, and we have given staff some of our best practices. This is our second meeting, so we've been meeting for a while already. Really good meeting, really excited. We've done really good work, especially today. Mm-hmm. And that is the update, unless anybody has anything. The next steps is going to be to bring an agenda forward to the board to vote on that list that we've developed that we want to put out to bid, and also to adopt the best practices that we are working with staff.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter, could you chime in and just give us your take a little bit?
It was pretty comprehensive what he just said. We did the best practices will be put forth, as well as reviewing. Most of the best practices will actually go towards putting forth the policy, a purchasing policy, a true purchasing policy. And then that will help us carve out how we want to move forward with new contracting and review of these contracts, especially some of these ones that have not been reviewed in quite a long time. But Director Cepeda was right on it.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Sutter. Any other committee reports?
Most of us meet next week.
All right. All right. So let's go on to the report. Activities from the board members, conferences, seminars, meetings. We'll start with Director Stanley.
I attended 2 online meetings yesterday. The second one was the City of Richmond and watching them go through the budget process, and I compared to what their process, I have a new appreciation for our process. I guess is the most diplomatic thing to say. And I did watch the Resilient by Design, their first meeting in a series of 5, I believe, which Andrew was talking about. And hopefully, Director Weiner, we can talk about this, the global warming committee meeting. But one of the things that I came away with, especially in light of current events, was environmental stewardship kind of goes hand in hand with social justice. And one of the things that we are talking about environmentally has been a levy, and possibly teaming together with other partners. And it seemed to me that talking about social justice in addition to environmental stewardship, and why it's a good thing to do for our community, to protect our community from point A to point B, and bring in other partners who can bring in some funding or assist with the process. It really intrigued me, and I hope to explore that more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner.
I attended the El Sobrante Chamber of Commerce, and they were worried about the viability of El Sobrante business going forward, and they were also very concerned about local looting. Let's see, I'm trying to think of when we discussed social justice, but I must say that the Sierra Club is intending to combine social justice with environmental activism going forward, which I think is a wonderful advent, and hopefully that will give momentum to both environmentalism and social justice. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda.
Yeah, I also attended the Richmond meeting and a few others, and that's what got me thinking about our budget, making sure that we are staying in track. Other than that, everybody else has pretty much said everything that needs to be said for some of the meetings that we've attended jointly. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter.
I want to tell you guys this, so I'm gonna take a minute, so just bear with me for a second. Over the last week or so, I've attended about just under 3 dozen different meetings. 3 dozen. one day, last Thursday, I was on 5 calls at one time. I had 2 on one computer. I had 3 different phones going, and then my 3rd computer going. So when I said something to you a few minutes ago about checking in on your employees, it was very personal. When people say to you that they're okay, they are not telling you the truth. Don't ask people if they're okay. Because most people are not okay. How can we be okay when all of us saw the life being choked out of a man on live television? How can we be okay with that? How can we see that happen and then walk around in life and pretend like the next day is okay? So I say to you that I am not okay with that. I say to you that I am not doing fine. And I doubt that your employees are doing fine. I doubt that our staff, I doubt that our district, I doubt that our neighbors, I doubt that our friends are doing fine. I doubt that anyone you know who is black or brown or indigenous people are doing fine. They are okay. As a mother of 2 young brown men, as a wife of a brown man, I am not doing fine. I can walk around and pretend and tell you those words coming out of my mouth, but I am not doing fine. I am involved in every type of social justice program throughout this West County and throughout East Bay Area. And I'm fighting for everything that each of you just named. But I still feel like a fraud when I talk to my children because they are asking questions that I cannot answer. My sons do not want to return to Atlanta right now. My daughter does not understand. I am going to these meetings trying to figure out why am I still going here, trying to fight for all of the things that all of us sit around this table to do. So I say to you, if we are going to fight for ecological, environmental, economical, social justice, then we need to be doing it not just when something like this happens, but we need to be doing it all the time, and we need to stop lying to ourselves and saying everything is fine. And don't accept just the surface answer when someone tells you they're fine. Let's be intentional with ourselves. We argued last week over words, a piece of paper, when we're talking about our mission, our vision, and our values. And I tell you that my value right now was defined yesterday, the Civic Center at Richmond, when I was asked to speak to a group of young people as they gave a youth rally. They asked me to speak to them, and they had masks on that says I can't breathe. And I talked to them, and I said, you have a God-given right to breathe, and you never let anybody take that from you. So, respirar means to breathe in Spanish. Value right now? My value right now is that we cannot let other people take away our right to speak and to breathe. We're arguing over whether we should have trust first, second, fifth, or last. I just want to be able to trust that my children will come home not because someone had a bad day and does not like their DNA. And I want to be able to trust that we can sit in this Zoom room or physical room and know that when we each go home, that your DNA does not hamper you from being able to breathe. So every meeting I go to, every meeting I want to go to, we need to honor that code. So each one of those 30 meetings didn't mean anything to me until we can fight for that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your thoughts, Vice President Sutter. I gave you a significant amount of leeway because of the events happening in the world today, and I think we all needed to hear something like that said. Absolutely. My only attendance at meetings was, or that weren't already mentioned, was the two City of San Pablo council meetings that had nothing of real subsequence that I could really share with anyone here. It had nothing to do with what we're doing here. Next item, please.
Item 8B, good of the order, report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
All right, my colleagues. Director Stanley, you first.
I have nothing.
All right, thank you. Director Weiner.
I would like the board to work on an official statement regarding the murder of George Floyd and the unpunished murders of unarmed black men and women at the hands of local government, noting that the police are the agents of local government. I leave it to you, Mr. President, how to organize such a thing. If staff would like to contribute, I would love that as well. I feel like we should have an official post online. In fact, all governments, no matter how small or large, should be addressing this, because it's not going to stop unless it's universally unacceptable for this kind of behavior from our governments. That's all I have to say.
President Alvarado, can I address the one comment about staff?
Yeah, you can do it at the end. Let me finish with everyone else.
Okay.
Okay. Director Cepeda.
Under this, the good of the order, nothing for me right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice President Sutter.
Fine. I agree with Director Weiner.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Sutter. I too wholeheartedly agree with Director Weiner, and yes, I will be the spearhead to make sure this gets done. Lisa, go right ahead.
I was just going to add to that. We have already been talking about messaging and what message to send out on behalf of the district. So I'm working with CV Strategies and with staff about what the right message is, and really where we've landed at the moment is really just to kind of express our shared pain and something like that. So I'm happy to talk offline about the message that we're developing, but we started that conversation yesterday. So
okay.
we're working on crafting something.
Okay, that's
different
great.
than the board, but.
Okay, thank you for that information. We'll definitely talk. Next item, please. Future item.
Item 8C, future agenda items, informal observations and inquiries regarding the business of the district or requests for placement of items of interest on a future agenda.
Director Stanley.
Nothing, thank you.
Director Weiner.
No, other than my last comment. I thought we were on this item. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Director Cepeda.
So yes, I want to see if we can bring up to the next agenda if we're able to bring the list that we've developed and the best practices from our ad hoc committee so that we can start voting on some of them and moving them forward.
Certainly a great idea. Vice President Sutter?
No.
Okay. I also, too, like Director Cepeda, would like to bring forth the recommendations of the ad hoc committee so we can start moving forward on them, okay? And I believe that's it. Next item, please.
Item 9, adjournment.
All right, I'm going to ask Director Weiner to once again repeat the adjournment.
Let's see, I have to go back and forth. All right.
Okay, take your time.
You can hear me, is
Yep.
what I'm checking. We adjourn this meeting in solidarity with the protests in Minnesota and around the Bay Area. Protests which are disrupting the injustice of business as usual. The business as usual, which includes the murder of our fellow citizens by racist police.
Thank you, Director Weiner. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Nice.
Stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Safe.
Good night. Stay safe, everyone.